to do a lot of newbie chats. But one thing to know is when you're sort of using the free version of this, it will limit the amount of images that you could create. And two, there's a lot of noise. So when you create an image, you're going to immediately sort of like lose the one you did. But again, it's a great place to start, play around with free. But when you're ready to sort of move on and you sort of learn the basics and you want to use it yourself, I highly recommend typing in subscribe. And what that will do is it will send you a private link so you can sign up for the service. It is, I think it's $7 a month if you pay for the year, 10 for month if you pay monthly. Either way, highly recommend grabbing a year, because what that's going to give you is access to your own bot. So now we're sort of in our own window. We can kind of move away sort of from the noise. So any questions there? I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. But also, it's as you just feel free to unmute and ask them out loud if they come up. All right. So once you're in Discord, these are some images that I've generated. I've been playing around with it. So it's pretty straightforward to generate your first image. So let's use the chat as well. Let's kick off your first image. All you have to do is there's all keywords. It all starts with a slash. And you're going to type in imagine. And then a prompt. Does anyone want to type a prompt into the chat that I can copy over so it doesn't look like this is as scripted? Take that as a no. All right.
Is there something like? Could you give us an example of maybe, I don't know?
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you guys some. I will play
creativity
adjective. So give me a place and an object.
I'll go for Hawaii and a pineapple. Oops. Feeling tropical today.
All right. Sorry. So imagine a pineapple on a beach in Hawaii. And that is it. So once you send your command, and we didn't give it too much instruction, so we're going to let it sort of figure out what we think we want. But the more information you give it, the better of the image generation will be closer to what you're looking for. So when it kicks off, you're going to see a waiting to start, because what's happening is it's sending this prompt to a ton of GPUs somewhere where it's sort of processing this image, and it will start. Oh, here we go. So it's going to start generating. And this is the part that I found the most fascinating when I got off of this journey is if there's any artists here that have worked with acrylic or oil, what you do is you paint in layers. So you do the base layer, and then you kind of paint over it and over it and over and over it. And that's sort of what this looks like and feels like. It's kind of happening in real time with a robot. And you can see it sort of generating the image as we go. And when it's done, I didn't even specify hyper realistic, but it looks like it sort of just took that shot. And here we sort of have 4 images. Just pretty quick, pretty smooth. And I just want to kind of talk over this interface really quickly. So let's say so this box here is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. And that's what these represent. So we can upscale any of these images so they're a little bit more usable. So if you click U1, we like this image. It will upscale that image. So then if you click on it, it's a little bit more higher definition. You can open it up in the browser and kind of get a better look at some of the details. Let's go back to Discord. Had we wanted to keep, one of these versions, and let's say we want to keep version 2, we have V2 over here. And what that does is it brings up a remix. So we could add items to it. So let's say a hawk flies in the...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. How did you get to that remix window?
All right, I'm just going to kick this off and I will show you the remix window. So if you click on any of these V's, it's going to try to create versions of it. Now, actually, you asked a great question because I forgot to show you something. So if you do /settings, these are the settings that I'm working with. So I've set it to model 5.2, but there's a remix mode. So had I not had that checked off, it would have just picked 4 variations at random. But since I have remix mode selected, it gives me to do the variation and also add some more information to it. And let's see, I think it's gonna get a little creative with that image. I think it's gonna create a pineapple hawk. But as you can see, you can sort of create, we go back to this source image up here. You can see that it sort of kept the general theme of it and didn't do a great job. But again, that's where you could, let's try another remix. Version 2, and do cartoon. I'm gonna have an easier time with that. So this is where you can start sort of tweaking your image and getting it a little bit closer to what you want it to look at, because we never specified realistic. And let's say we got it wrong, but we sort of like the placement of everything. This will sort of keep that placement as the closest it can, reimagine it, and with a difference. So if you have an art background, you can say impressionist, you can say the name of an artist. It's really good about sort of blending it back into the core image. All right, here we go. And I did see a stat this week. If you're paying, so when you pay for a subscription, you do get a certain amount of hours for processing time. It seems to average out to about 250 images a month. So it's usually a safe bet for most folks that are novice or using it for business. As long as you're not kind of there creating huge swaths of media, it's probably enough. They have higher tiers, you can pay for more hours, but I personally have not needed it, and I use my subscription to teach courses and for my business, and I've never really exhausted my full amount. So here we go. So there's a good version of the remix as well. So now we have more of a cartoon style. So let's try a couple more things. Let's upscale number 4, because there's a couple more options that I want to talk through sort of on the interface and layout. You're gonna have what was new in version 2. It's a zoom out and zoom in. And this is a really cool feature because it will essentially take the image and pull back out and sort of paint around the image as well. So it continues to kind of grow the image, or these left, right arrows, you can kind of move it up and down. So one thing we can also do is we can say custom zoom. And I saw this yesterday that where you could use this to create mockups. It's not great, but I do want to share because it's a great business use case if you have an image and you want to turn it into mockups of a t-shirt or framed art. So on a framed art wall, art, go home. So, and then you'll also see here that there are commands, which we will touch base on a little bit later on, but AR, you say aspect ratio. So this is a 1:1, but you could change it to anything you want. 11:8, 15:20, and it will kind of create images sort of differently in those shapes. So as these are generating, so you can see that, this core image remained, and then it sort of pulled back out and added more items. And we could continue to zoom out, which is really fascinating. So as that frame generates, I'll show you guys an aspect ratio. Here we go. So here's an 11:14. I was trying to generate some images for a blog post for the business, and this was the one I landed on. So again, with the subscription, you also get commercial license to your images. So you could use them on your website, you could use them on your newsletters, you could use them on your blog. No more going to Getty Images, no more stock photos, which is tens of thousands of dollars if you're really using this a lot. Let's see. Oh, here we go. So yeah, if you create images, create art, and you want to sell them on Etsy, I have a couple Etsy prints out there. It's a great, here we now have some mockups. So the zoom out's actually a creative way to create mockups. So we could have put this on a mug. We could have done some other items, but just another easy way. saw that. Oh, I think Steven, I think we talked about, putting, when you were at the last one, we talked about, how do you get it onto other objects? This is one of the things I want to show you. This might be a useful way to kind of get some of the, something in a boardroom together. All right, take a quick pause here because that's sort of the basics of it. Obviously, we could spend hours going through all of the commands and settings, but I want to get sort of to some of the use cases as well. All right, much more questions when we're in person. So, then we'll have to do some of these more in person. All right, so we've used it for logo and design, which is really, really great. So a couple options here, and we'll do this in real time with you guys. So let's say you're starting a new business or a new web page. You could do Imagine, and we could say logo for pet insurance company. And we could have said we want a dog, a cat, a bird. We'll sort of let it sort of generate some images here. This ends up being kind of a fun, quick starting point for a lot of folks. One thing to also note that Midjourney is terrible, and all AI generate are terrible all about text. It doesn't really know how to spell, do words. So if some of these images come back, it's helpful to note that these are not finished products. You will have to take them to Photoshop or some editor to kind of get them refined. But again, had you been using 99 Designs or Fiverr, here's your $10 justified immediately. Let's try to tweak it. Let's say, oops, imagine a vector. So these are not bad. I know a lot of folks like the simplistic, minimalistic. I should probably put minimalistic in here as well, but we'll tweak that as we go through. So we'll be working with multiple images through this. All right, let's just kick that off. Imagine a minimalist.
Vimal, while Midjourney is doing its thing, I saw someone, Cassandra, put in the chat. She has a question here. Can you share your brand identity with the bot so that the images it produces fall within parameters of your brand? That's a pretty good question.
Yeah, that is great. So you could get it close. So we'll try this and use light, black, and green. And you could probably even specify, let's see, let's get an HTML editor, HTML color code.
Do you think you could give, actually all like hex codes and things like that?
I'm going to bring one up on my other screen because I do not have these memorized. So all right, let's grab this code. And let's grab this code. And as it loads, it's important to note that it's not going to get these codes exactly right. So this is where post-processing is going to be needed. But let's see where it sort of, oops, I didn't tell it to imagine anything. But it should get it relatively close, right? So here it's starting to get a little bit better on minimalistic. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do a version of 4. Me using that. And we'll let these two sort of complete real quick. So it didn't really seem to do a great job on the color codes. So yeah, I guess the answer to the question is you're probably gonna have to do some sort of post-processing on this.
I'm trying to think, what else when it comes to a brand? I mean, I suppose you've got fonts, but obviously fonts is. What about font styles, or let me think, what other kinds of things? I suppose this suppose there's like a brand identity. So I suppose there's, description of a brand and
yeah, you're gonna definitely have to tweak a lot of that in there. So even getting like one for one, it's just not great at that yet. So it is great kind of getting the sort of the base image, but you're not going to be able to specifically fine tune it in this tool itself. All right, cool. So we got some new here. Yeah, so as you see, these are not the colors we specified. And it's swapped out some, it's still processing here. We'll come back to that. All right, so let's quickly look at also product mockups as we talked about it earlier. So there is a tool, a function called blend, and it's going to ask for 2 images. So let's bring up a person using a computer. And again, let's see, what's a good image? Here we go. You can copy this image and you can paste it in here. Oh, did I not copy it? All right, let's save these quickly to my desktop. I apologize for the delay. And then an analytics tool. UI. Let's see if I can find something usable. Here we go. Let's Google images. All right, so save image as my desktop. Oh, that's probably why I didn't save it. They're not images. How do I save an image? All right, bear with me here. Oops. They're not saved. All right, we're gonna cheat a little bit here. So we'll do screen cap these. There's that one. And go grab that guy again. Where did he go? All right, so what the blend's going to do is it's going to take the 2 images and try to its best to combine them. And then it'll add a little bit of variation. So you could add more text to here and say it's nighttime, but we're just going to try to just blend these 2 together. And it will try to process it. So a lot of folks like using their own images or their own faces. So one thing you could also do is you can just send yourself a message of an image. So let me see if I can find something on my desktop. Here, well, that picture I had earlier, I'll add it in here. Yes, now where's those hands? Here we go. So we'll add an image, and this way you can put a photo of yourself. So if you're doing this in parallel, feel free to upload it for yourself. If you have Discord, works really great on your phone. And when you right-click it, you copy the link. And you could do this with any link that's sort of searchable via Google. That's what I was trying to do earlier, rather than just trying to copy the URL. But because we have pasted here, if there's no photos on the internet and you want to kind of keep it private, you can just do it through here. You put in the link to it, and we'll say toy cars. I'm not sure, and then see if it adds toy cars to it. We'll see. So this is where you can sort of tweak. We could have changing the style is sort of the easy way out of showing how this works, but I try to like push it to see if it gets super creative. But yeah, here's our blend images. So let's go back to see if it remembered. I think it did not store what the 2 source images were, but it knew that it had a person using a computer, and it knew we had a picture of like a desktop application. So it's a place to start to kind of get an image going. So this image is no longer the source image we used. So again, it's no longer, you kind of have commercial rights to this. And again, you will need to take this image into post-processing to replace it with your application or your tool. And so then it's more reflective because it also sort of tweaked and created a new screenshot completely that's not related to Google's data. All right, here we go. So yeah, so you can sort of see also I passed it an image that looked like this. I then blended it and said to use toy cars instead. And not bad. It knew there was somebody playing with toy homes, and now there's a couple cars in the image. So again, and it was a realistic image to start off with. It maintained that style. And yeah, here we go. I think some of these are actually usable. These two are here on the right-hand side. All right. Any questions? Is it possible to create wireframes for a website or an app? Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's where I was gonna go. All right. So the short answer is it's really great for getting to an inspiration level of design. It's not going to give you like a Figma file. It's not going to give you an HTML file, but it will give you, so we'll kind of a starting point. So imagine a website, modern UI, UX, and is there a type of company you want to put in the chat? Or a insurance company? Pet insurance always is the popular one, stuff in the chat will. All right, Postmates food delivery. Food delivery company. And I think a mobile app UI UX for a food delivery company. Oh, forgot to imagine it. All right. So these are pretty cool. Your thing is that you're definitely going to need a designer to actually execute on some of these. So as you'll see here, that it's actually too good is what my opinion is. Let these finish. All right, let's view these in the browser. And you can see they use sort of, I guess, did I load that before it finished? Sorry. Oh, I did. There we go. So again, it knows in what's a header, it wants some information here. The interesting designs, not ones that you're common that I would have chose. The mobile ones look like they're a little bit better. And again, if you do know somebody really good at Figma, and there's a lot of YouTube videos where you see folks create Midjourney images, then take them, put them in Figma as like a flat image, and then just design over the top of them. Then you have something you could actually use to build out as well. So great for inspiration as well. Let's try this one more time. A modern landing page, simple, minimal. Let's see what it comes up with this time. And again, if there's something you sort of like and sort of in the ballpark, again, you can start creating variations of it. You can tell it to use vectors, you can tell things, and so it'll move away from like realistic images. So that's where sort of knowing some of the commands will help as well. If you're unfamiliar with the commands, I know we're not going to cover all of them. Again, just back on Midjourney's website, all of the documentation's here, but Reddit is actually I think a better source as well. And again, as mentioned, if you go back to Discord and go to the public channels, it's a great place to just sort of learn what other people are doing and what they're getting. There is yeah, member support, and then again, just sort of watching what other folks are doing. Twitter as well will give you, you know, great inspiration. You'll see a lot of people use commas. Commas are actually more for you than it is for Midjourney. It actually doesn't really parse grammar. So again, just don't be, specifying words and breaking them out does not really work. To do that, you can use weighting. So we'll use this one. So here we got it. We got a design here. Let's go back to one of our images here. Where was the one with the falcon? There we go. So what you could do is you could put weights by doing comma, comma. Default weight is 1. 2 is the far right, where you say this word is really, really important in this. And then you could say negative or 0.5 to kind of decrease some of the weight on some of these words. So it'll have more of a, well, maybe not why it's not great to do it. Decrease the weight of a pineapple. And this is how you would sort of specify what you want more in your image and want less of it to generate. So, here we have another, so one of the websites, this is a little cleaner, more minimalistic. Still, again, you're going to need some great your own photography, which you can use Midjourney to create some of these. And then again, if you have a web design background, you can probably get to these ones pretty quickly. So remember, you don't need the Midjourney to generate the whole thing in one shot. You could break out your images, your product images, your mock-ups, and then put it together with your designers. Yeah, you can see starting to push the pineapple back, add more beach to it, rather than having the pineapple front and center. So that's how weighting is going to work as well. All right. Any more questions there? So one thing then we'll jump into is describe. So let's say you're new to it and you want to know how Midjourney thinks, so you could sort of reverse engineer. Describe is a great way, because what you can do is type in describe, and what this is going to do is you give it an image and it will tell you how it would generate that with a prompt. So we'll take an image. We'll go use the one with the car. I'm just going to screen cap that. And actually, let's do something else. Let's go to Etsy. Grab some images here that we think it might be able to generate. All right, so let's grab this. And we'll describe this image. And what it's doing is like I said, it's reverse engineering the prompt. So here we go. So it says a Manhattan skyline with trees in Brooklyn Park, in a style. So now what you can do is, if you want to create your own version of this, an image that you own, you imagine that prompt. And let's see. It's nice to try all the different ones. Giving it a camera type is really great. Like saying it's a Polaroid photo, we'll give you a Polaroid image. I'm not a big camera guy, but I know if you say like the focus lenses and the DSLR, or even the Canon, the type of camera, it does a really great job of creating images sort of in that style. Are there any photography people here? Anyone know a camera style they want to test it on? I lost my chat too. I don't know where the window went. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, we've got one other question in the chat as well.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, George has a question.
That's a little harder. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. Let's go back to the public chat as soon as it generates. And Discord has a search feature. I don't think it's going to give you an inventory of everything that's ever been created for Thundercats, but let's see if anyone's done that in the last little bit of history. So, all All right, so here we go. Yeah, so if you like this image and you wanted something else, something similar to it again, the grid that describes a great way to generate those. So let's go to Midjourney's public. And you're sort of going to search, we'll search one of the newbie ones. Thundercats. See what comes up. Here we go. Looks like somebody was trying to create some realistics of Tigra. And then, yeah, that's sort of a starting point. So you won't get the full inventory, but you'll get sort of what people have been playing with. There's 12,000 results. So I guess you can search, actually, yes, you can search through history. Actually interesting. You see some of these older versions of it. You can see how it's evolved, right? How it's gotten better. So actually an interesting way to see the evolution of the tool that I didn't even think about. A great question.
I also dropped in the chat. There's also a website called lexica.art, which I found quite useful for just searching for images by keyword that have been generated by AI. I think it does more than just Midjourney. It kind of searches all the publicly available results from other platforms like Dolly and all the other ones as well. Dolly?
Dolly? Yeah, Dolly.
Yeah. So lexica.art is the website I was referring to.
All right. Cool. All right, so I think we've covered most of these. So, marketing images, again, is another great way. So if you have images on your website, a lot of folks like using stock photos or people using products or icons. It's really great about vector icons. So you can say, I want a vector icon of a database, of a server, of a Coca-Cola, of a soda cup, whatever you may be. These used to be actually really expensive or take a lot of time to create in Illustrator. So again, great way to wipe out some of that expense. And we looked a little bit at described and we looked at zoom out. So yeah, we went a little bit faster than we do in person without all the questions. But let me kind of pause here. I want to show one more thing after this in regards to how to sort of use ChatGPT as well to accelerate. But let me just, before we jump from Midjourney, any other questions or anything else anybody wants to see?
I think someone asked in the chat, could you share the link to the Google Slides? Yeah, that should be possible. Yeah, we will drop that in an email that goes out after this talk. And we've also got a Telegram group as well, which I'll pop the link to in the chat if you want to join that. I actually have a question for you, Vimal.
Yeah.
I got a little excited with Midjourney and had played around quite a lot. And I burnt through my entire allowance of images. But I didn't really find there was like a very obvious way of figuring out just how much do I have left on my current subscription. And I was wondering if there's an easy way to just, maybe I've just missed something. And it's also actually quite not obvious where to find when the allowance resets as well. So I think I'm just on the very basic plan. I think I'm paying, I don't know.
On the base. Yeah, I believe it's under the subscribe. I'm going to quickly look. I don't want to bring up my secret code on the other side, but I'm going to sign in real quick. My other screen. Yeah, I may need to follow up with an answer to that one because I'm not 100% sure where in the settings it is without bringing it up all my credit card information. So,
no worries. Yeah, of course.
Bear with me. I'll kind of provide that as well.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's actually cover some of the settings as well because I forgot to do that too, right? So let's say we have imagine and riding a skateboard in Japan, and let's say here's some common commands: hyper realistic, cinematic, and there's a series of commands you could use. And again, most of these will be in the settings tutorial, but the common ones are going to be AR for aspect ratio. So we could do 8:11 if you're trying to, or 8:5, yeah, if you're trying to print something on paper. And that's more of the common one. You could change all these via commands. You could change the model number, you could pick an older one, but again, if you do dash dash, and then we want to say we don't want something, there are some things called the negative commands. So these are what you don't want in the image. You say no, and we don't want. Actually, let's do something, and then we'll remove it from the image as soon as it generates. All right, almost there. And you will find these speeds vary. If you're on like really late at night, it's a little faster. And then obviously during key business hours or early evening, you'll see it a little slower as well. All right, so these are actually pretty cool images. Here we go. So let's do this. Let's upscale variation of 1, and we're using negative commands. So we'll say no telephone pole. Resubmit that one. And as it runs, also we could have done, let's upscale that one in parallel. Upscale works a little faster. Larger version of it too in parallel. All right. And you could zoom out. We could have done the same thing with like sort of a zoom out and then sort of tweaking that image and removing it as well. But we now go back to the image that we generated with the negative prompt. This is how you remove images or tell it you don't want it in your images. So here's the first one up here. We created a variation of it. And we'll see what happens when this one finishes here in a second, but again, yeah, negative prompts and on one of the many settings, aspect ratio, you'll see that this is also now, the size of a piece of paper where opposed to everything we were doing before, we're all squares. Here we go. All right, no, there's a couple telephones in there in the distance, but it definitely weighted it out a little bit. All right. So this is sort of the image side of things. And then as everyone probably already uses ChatGPT or a tool like that. ChatGPT ends up being a great tool for when, you have your website to, another gripe, it always logs you out. But if you go back to your website images, like I said, there was no text, it got it all wrong. So, obviously you're going to want to pull all this out, but, to write your copy, to write your call to actions, to write your, starter blog post, do grammar checks. That's sort of where you're going to want to marry sort of the design side with ChatGPT. So if you created a logo and you don't know your company name, it's great for generating that. Brands, you can give it your brand tone and write messaging around that too. So that's sort of where kind of marrying the two comes in really handy. Again, we won't kick it off, but again, so want to sort of kind of stitch the two together. Let's go see the last image. I guess I didn't. Oh, I did a variation. I'm sorry, I didn't upscale it. And I zoomed out. So yeah, interesting take as it continues to kind of get much better with reflections as well. This was a big jump between 5 and 5.1 and much better at 5.2. So definitely play with the hyper realistic and the cinematic commands. You'll get some really, really cool images. We've sort of deviated away from business here, but again, it's nice to play with. All right. And the last thing I want to share you guys is sort of what we're doing in our business with sort of AI and deviating away from Midjourney, but just generally, is we are creating custom chatbots for folks. So let's say we're working actually with Hudson Market. You guys are familiar in New York with Hudson Market, or if you have like a leasing desk, you can create your own bots with your own data. So imagine walking into a grocery store and not knowing anything about it. This is where you're going to be able to say, well, what aisle are the eggs? And if you're familiar with how to use the OpenAI API, how to use Pinecone, you're going to get these great helper bots that are available to you, hopefully in more locations in New York soon. Oh, wait, it's our demo environment, so I apologize. but again, yeah, so with leasing bots, if you want to rent an apartment, you could come and say, what units are available as you're walking by some apartment building. So this is the space that we're going to be playing with. And eventually we're going to be adding images as well too. So real images of, can I see what a one bedroom looks like? And it'll be kicking it over. So we're super excited to build this out. This is our alpha/beta. But yeah, we are, if anyone's interested in us and what we're building, just definitely the LinkedIn is in the original invite. So I highly recommend connecting. And hopefully Jonathan and I will be doing some more AI events as we go.
Absolutely.
That, John, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome, thanks. Vimal, there was just actually, I don't know if you caught this one. Peter was asking about Pinecone. If you could say a little bit more about Pinecone.
Yeah, so data in an LLM is not really stored in just large files. It's stored in a new database style called vector databases. And Pinecone's a tool that allows you to push data in. Oh, there we go. You could do an event and ingesting private data into LLM. So, can you do an event on ingesting? Oh, I'm sorry. You're asking, can we do an event on it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could definitely do that. But that's what Pinecone is. You're able to take large sets of PDFs, data, open text, SQL database, push it to Pinecone, and then be able to ask it questions in conjunction with OpenAI. So hence you could take the OpenAI, asking questions in English, and then train it against your own private data, which is not shared in OpenAI, which cuts off at 2021.
Awesome. Okie doke. Well, Vimal, thank you. This has been very enlightening and educational. Just like you say, that this the title of this presentation was for fun and profit. So it wasn't just all about business. We like to have a little bit of fun of these things. Speaking of fun, actually, one of the things I found really fun with Midjourney is basically taking someone's image and generating like a sort of them morphed into Batman. I did this with one of the people on the call, Stephen Blocker, with a couple of different characters. And so this is Stephen's original picture. I think I might have taken that one or a different one. But here we have different versions of him as Batman, as Clark Kent, the Punisher, Jason Bourne, James Bond. It's quite fun. I actually took the liberty, Cassandra, I hope you don't mind, but I noticed that you had a picture of yourself and I ran that through to see what he would look like if this is the version of Cassandra in Lara Croft. So this is her original picture and this is her as Lara Croft. Sometimes the results come out, they're not, perfect, but nearly there. Anyway, that's just a little bit of fun. I also mentioned just good resources at lexica.art, and that allows you to search for previous examples of there was someone who said he wanted some pictures of thunderbirds that have been generated by AI, and that kind of shows you what other people are generating, not just on Midjourney but other platforms as well. I think so. It actually says here. Let's see. Yeah, so it actually gives you the whole prompt. And allows you to kind of play around with it. Anyway, so that's a good resource. Fantastic. One last thing I kind of wanted to share that is kind of interesting is now let's see. So I shared some slides at the very beginning of this talk. I actually started recording after they were shared. But I just wanted to show you how I generated them. And this is something else. Maybe actually using Midjourney. I'm not even sure, to be honest. But I generated those slides by just pasting in some notes. And so what this is, it's a platform called Gamma. It is a platform I'm paying for, but I think you can get some free credits if you just sign up and have a play around. But it allows you to create slides with AI. So you can just paste text in, and it will generate a presentation or a talk or something else. So you can choose, either presentation, document, web page. And so as an example here, I've basically taken, this is a speech I gave at Toastmasters about social dinners. So I've just basically pasted the information from there. I'm going to make this, I'm going to say it's going to be, let's make it funny. Why not? You can choose, do you want the images to be, the ones that are free to use commercially? This is just for entertainment purposes. So I figure we use all the images. And if I generate that, it's going to ask me what color scheme we want. So I can choose a different one here. I can ask it to surprise me. Let's choose that one. That looks nice. And then what we'll start to see, I think this is pretty amazing, but it will just basically, this is the AI generation just doing its thing. So it's actually just auto creating all the slides on the fly, creating the layout. So sometimes it does columns. Sometimes it will create a timeline. So that's quite impressive. If you think about, if you need to give a talk and you need to put some slides together and you're like, oh, I've got no time, this is a really, really useful tool. Another actually clever thing about this is it will actually generate, so you can actually just give it a topic. So say, for example, let's say, let's say the progression of Indiana Jones. I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. I really want to see the movie. But I'm quite curious about how the movies have changed over years. Okay, so it's basically given us a possible outline. And yeah, that looks pretty good. It's kind of broken it down by different movies. So let's see how that, so maybe we want something maybe with like a bit of a desert theme. So let's see if we can find one here. Oh yeah, that's a good one. June, there we go. Let's see what Indiana Jones-esque slides it could come up with. So it's giving us an overview of the franchise, split it out by movies, iconic scenes, some for the characters, and it's all relatively accurate. So anyway, that's just a helpful resource that I thought might be interested for some of you. Excellent. Anyway, it carries on and on and on. But we are approaching the very end of our allocated time. So I just wanted to finish off and just let you know that we do have an event where I'll be talking on this Thursday. I'm going to be talking about voice learning. It's also pretty wild stuff, just like Vimal's talk today on Midjourney. So please do come along if you happen to be in New York. This is actually the same meetup that I actually originally came across Vimal. So it's a really good one. And there's Sahiti is going to give us a talk about personal language models, which is really interesting. Instead of just ones from stuff on the web, you're actually, basically leveraging your own knowledge base. So that's quite interesting as well. And then, of course, we've got another one of these lunch and learns in person in New York, downtown. Do come along. It's basically the in-person version of this. It's on Thursday, July 27th. I will send out all the links. And yeah, look forward to hopefully seeing you then. But otherwise, great to have you all. I'll be following up with all the links and everything I've mentioned. Yeah, I can see in the chat, people say, oh, what's the link? Gamma app, it is. Vimal has had to jump off. And I think with that, we can wrap things up. Thank you very much for attending, and catch you at the next event. All right, cheers. Take care, Peter, George, Cassandra, Jody, Stephen. Oh, I see you've even got your wee one on your on your lap. Fantastic. That's great. We've got a very diverse audience, age-wise. Anyway, lovely. Thank you very much. And I'm going to save the chat and share your links as well, as I've seen people have put their sort of LinkedIn's and so on